Yes, dear friends, this is Bob Hatton. This is The Encourager. And we're going to continue with the story of the prodigal son. One of my, no, not just one of my favorite stories, my favorite story in the New Testament, about this guy who goes and he squanders all the money that the father has given to him, the money that the father has really earned and saved over many years. He goes and throws it out, but then he's coming back and the father sees him, and the father sees him because he's been waiting for him and he's been looking for him, and he sees him, and the Bible tells us he was moved with compassion. He had compassion on his son, and compassion is a very strong emotion. Maybe we see something in the news, maybe we are confronted with a situation and we think, oh, what a pity, what a pity. But you know, this what a pity, that is not compassion, because compassion is something that motivates us to do something. The very first Christian book that I read, I'm talking about now going back more than 50 years, was a book called The Cross and the Cross and the Switchblade, and it was written by a man called David Wilkerson, a pastor who was in a small town in somewhere in America. But David Wilkerson, he would come home after having a busy day, come home late at night, and to wind down a little bit, he would watch TV. And one day he was watching something on TV and he thought, this is, what am I doing watching this? It's just a complete waste of time. So he switched the TV off, and he thought to help him to wind down in the evenings before he went to bed, it might be good if he just prayed a little bit. So that's what he started to do evening for evening. When he came home, maybe he took a cup of tea or something, but then he would have a meeting with Father in heaven, and he would pray maybe about what have happened in the day. He would bring his requests to the Lord. He would ask him about his family and for their needs, and about the needs in the church and the needs in the city, and whatever came into his mind. He would have fellowship with God, and that seemed to be very good for him. Then one day he came home late and he wanted to wind down, got his cup of tea, sat down on the settee and just started to engage with God. But somehow on this special evening, he couldn't concentrate properly. And his eyes drifted to a magazine that was open on the settee where he was sitting. And there was a story about something that had happened in a big city in America, in New York, in one of the districts, one of the areas, one of the quarters of the town that was very, very rough, where there was a lot of gangs and a lot of violence. And a group of teenagers, they'd attacked a guy. I think he was in a wheelchair. He was injured if he didn't even die. And these guys were they were in prison, or they were on trial. And Wilkerson, he couldn't concentrate on his prayer time on that special evening, so he read this story. And as he read the story about these people, he was filled with compassion. And compassion, the biblical word compassion, it really means that our bowels are turned over. It was this deep feeling, this deep, where you said something in your stomach, you get stomach ache. And that's what he got. And this compassion is something that motivates us to do something. And so, to make the story short, he decides to go to New York. And he goes to New York, and he doesn't have very much money. He has to sleep in his car, and sleeping in a car in the city in this very, very rough area is very dangerous. And he nearly gets killed there a few times. He meets people who are very violent and difficult, but he has compassion with these people. And again, just to make this story short, he brings a lot of these gangsters to the Lord, and he actually starts a worldwide ministry working amongst drug addicts. But it's this thing about the compassion. He hears a story. He doesn't just say, oh, what a pity, isn't that a shame? But this compassion, this godly compassion, it moves him it motivates him to action. And if I just tell you a little bit about my story, I was a pastor for 30 years in various churches, and towards the end of the second time I was in a pastorate, I began ministering in foreign countries quite a lot. I was in Asia, in India, and Sri Lanka, and Nepal, then also in East Africa, ministering, helping people, training leaders and training church workers, doing teaching, helping them to understand the Bible greatly. And then I realized that I was there, that the people I was ministering to were extremely poor, and I had compassion with them. Compassion that I think came to God, that motivated me to do something. When I asked the Lord about this and what should be done, He seemed to prompt me from by showing me Galatians chapter 2 and verse 10, and there it's the apostles in Jerusalem. They're speaking to Paul and to Barnabas, and they say to them, don't forget the poor. Don't forget the poor. And that was something that's burned into my heart. Don't forget the poor. And since this time, we've been working with the poor. We've been helping them where we can. We've been motivated to, sometimes it's very difficult work, but we've been motivated to help people who are less fortunate than we are by building schools, by digging wells, by feeding the hungry, by helping people to get jobs, by doing many other things. This compassion is something that moves us. This is something that is very strong. And the father in our story, when he saw his son returning home, I don't know whether the son was limping or whether he could see that he was, very hungry, or what was the thing, or whether it was just his son. He was moved with compassion, and that moved him to do something about it. And what he did, we'll see tomorrow. So I do hope that you have a good day today. God bless you, and I'll see you again. Your encourager, your Bob Hatton.